Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode 207. The kid on the fence became the boss. Wow. It's part 2 of our conversation with Al Cisneros, Vietnam F-4 Phantom pilot with 154 combat missions. And later, the first Hispanic Blue Angel. If you heard part 1, you already know this one delivers. And if you didn't, trust me, pause, go back and start there. Before I get out of the way and let Al keep doing what he does best, I've got something I need to say. Al, thank you. A huge, huge thank you. $500 donation that you made will help keep this show going, and it's not something we take lightly. We're humbled by it. We're genuinely grateful and honestly more than a little blown away, not just by the support, but by the time you've spent with us and the stories that you've shared. It means a lot and more than we can put into words. So thank you. Seems inadequate. For the rest of you, if you've ever thought, hey, I'd like to support So There I Was, but you don't want to crack your wallet and send us money or mess with your budget, we get it. There's now an easy way to do that. Next time you're shopping on Amazon, just start at stiw.shop. That's stiw.shop. Takes you to the same Amazon with the same prices, nothing extra on your end, and we get a small commission for pointing you there in the first place. It costs you nothing, and it helps keep the conversations coming. All right, I said I'd keep it short. This is part 2. The stories go deeper, the perspective gets even better, and you're going to want to hear all of it. Don't sit on the ejection seat handle. Don't do it.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
The skipper calls my stateroom, right, and I'm writing this flight schedule, and he said, pack your bags, you're leaving. Just like that. Pack your bags, you're leaving. And I said, Skipper, what do you mean I'm leaving? He says, well, you're going to Saigon. And I go, I'm going to Saigon, sir? He said, yeah, you're going to take your airplane. They're going to clean it up a little bit, an F4, and you're going to courier the photographs to Saigon, to a waiting C-141, that as soon as you get there, they're going to take the pouch. He's going to do a one stop for fuel, and he's going to go directly to Paris on the order of the president. Go. What an honor.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And man, I'll tell you, we landed, I wanted to go into the break there at Thompson, real fast and land this thing. They wouldn't let me. They said, slow down, slow to 150, you got traffic. Well, hell, you go getting flaps 3 miles from the airport, you're going to get stuff coming up at you, right? And sure enough, it's ping, ping, ping. And my back seater goes, what, hey, this is supposed to be South Vietnam. This is supposed to be friendlies down here. What the hell's going on? And so we survived that, landed, get to the ramp, and the C-141 is off to my right about 50, 75 yards. Engine 1 is turning, 2 is turning, 3 is turning, 2 is not, because the back door's got to open, right behind the number 2 engine. It opens, and here comes this full bird colonel in dress uniform, and he double times, right? Really right, double times, right? And I'm ready to present the pouch to him. I'm at attention, and I'm going to do this, bring it down, give him a salute, hand him the pouch. When I got to about right in here, he snatches the pouch from underneath my armpit, takes his hat off, and he runs. Doesn't double time. He runs to the C-141.
Wow.
Think about the urgency of that whole situation.
No time for military courtesy, son. Give me the damn pouch.
Yeah, right. And so as soon as he starts running, They start the number 2 motor,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
He gets in, they slam the door, they release the brakes, they take a high speed. I mean, they got black smoke coming out of the 4 engines, does a low transition, and then boom, straight up to avoid the small arm stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
We had to spend the night, and we got rocketed. We spent quite a bit of the night there underneath our bunks in this Quonset hut, right?
Oh, geez.
And what was interesting about that, we as aviators, we don't hear the sounds of war.
Right.
We hear the stuff that's on the radios, and a lot of nasty stuff sometimes, right? But we don't hear the sounds of war. We see the concussions, and those kind of things, and sometimes the parachutes or the airplanes coming apart or all of those other things that really wear on your spirit, but never the sounds, and so here
In fact, we had the Dos Gringos on, and that was one of the things that they mentioned is that they saw all the flak going around them. It was like, oh, but you can't hear anything.
Can't hear it. You can see it.
Yeah.
But that was a gift, because then you have a different perspective of what those guys on the ground go through. You'll never understand it, right? And you talk about an aviator having PTSD. Nah, you have no clue what real PTSD is like.
Right.
Those things down there. So, but what a privilege to have that, in the logbook, right? And again, it's my commanding officer, who says, I need to get this kid over the top. When I got back, I was supposed to go to VF1, the first F-14 squadron. The Navy wanted a second cruise, first combat experienced pilot to go into VF1, into the F-14. And so I was selected to go. About a week before I was supposed to detach, I got called back into the fighter wing office. And he's smiling at me and he goes, well, you got your orders to go to San Diego, but now we're gonna send you somewhere else for a little bit. And then after that, you can go wherever you'd like to go. I said, well, sir, I'll go wherever I need to go. You please tell me. He says, you're going to be a test pilot. You're going to be in the test pilot world for about a year. And it's a clandestine program at Langley up there in Virginia, right? CIA stuff. And I said, okay. Will I fly? He said, yeah, just come back here on the weekends, to Oceana and take an F4 and go fly somewhere. Well, good. So I started to walk out and I said, Captain, who's going to take my place? And he goes, let me look. He looks at the paper and says, some guy by the name of Hoot Gibson. I said, the Hoot Gibson? He goes, yeah, Hoot Gibson. You know him? I said, yes, sir. I was in the training command with him. He's a legend. And eventually, we really became good friends. And the reason for it is this. The man who survived all the combat missions with me, my Rio, he was supposed to go with me. So he goes and he becomes Hoot's Rio, right? Well, there you go, Hooter, buddy. He flew with Hoot, right, in the F-14. Steve finished his tour out there in BF1, and he came back to Oceana as an instructor in the RAG, the F-14 RAG. And another sad story, if I may, about 2 months before he was going to get out of the Navy and go back and get a master's in physical education because he wanted to be a coach, right, back in North Carolina. So the F-14 was having problems with fuel leaks right there, in at the center section where the two asymmetrical engines sit, right? And there's a defect in there, chronic fuel leaks. And they went out there on a Friday to do the test op after an engine replacement. They got there and there's fuel on the ramp. So the maintenance guys come, oh, sorry, sir. They're both instructors, right? we'll get it fixed. Can you come back tomorrow and do the test flight because we need the airplane out of the ship on Monday? No problem. They came back, took the runway, go through 80 knots, and light the burner. Number one catches on fire, and not a gentle fire either. So, and it was the number one engine, and unfortunately, I'm second guessing, and I apologize for that. But at Oceana, it's Budway 5, which is what they were using. 3214 crosses over. Well, you never turn into the sick engine, right?
Right.
He should have turned right. But I think that when the airplane started to roll a little bit, he saw 3214 go underneath him. Oh. And that maybe he's going to come back around and, tight turn back and land. It didn't work. And so they lost their lives, right? And on that very same day, I was doing an air show. I was in the slot at Point Mugu, almost at the identical time. Had an incident in the air show where it was almost crisis, right? Oh, and I thought, how interesting for Steve and I to have survived all that stuff that we survived, and that we almost could have both lost our lives on the same day,
Wow.
Yeah. And so, what is this about? It's about the lives that we live when we aspire to be unique, when we aspire to be patriots, when we aspire to make a contribution to the best of our ability. Matter of fact, part of my history is that the very last time I flew a Navy airplane, after I flew my last air show in Pensacola, I asked my commanding officer if he would let me borrow one of the airplanes for me to go pay my respects to Steve's widow, and he of course said, absolutely, go do that. Just take whatever airplane you want. And, I said, no, I'll just take the number 7 jet. I'll take the two-seater. He said, no, take the 4 airplanes. No, sir, that belongs to the new number 4 pilot. So I put on my green flight suit, not my fancy dancy tailored flight suit, right. Put on my green flight suit, and off I went to Virginia Beach, and think about the emotion that is part of an event like that. Right? Think about flying back to Pensacola and that being the last time you fly a Navy jet.
Yeah, but did you know that was going to be your last flight? Did you know? Or did it just work out that way?
Well, I was leaving the Navy then.
Okay.
And that was another controversy about why, and nothing against needs of the Navy, but what they wanted me to do was to fly my last air show on a Sunday, and then by Friday be at Miramar.
Wow.
Okay.
Because
Monday,
schedules.
Monday. Think about it. This is
it's 2,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Immediate. Here's a change in your orders. You're gonna do this. You're gonna fly your last air show Sunday afternoon. You're gonna go to the end of the season stuff. You're gonna get in your car on Monday or Tuesday, and by Friday you got to be at Miramar. Monday you're gonna be in class. You're gonna be fast tracked to the Enterprise. I think BF-111, F-14s. I was exhausted, guys. I don't mind telling you. I had nothing in the tank. Think about it. I've been fast tracked for 7 years. I've been in a suitcase. Loved every minute of it, but I had nothing in the tank. And I thought, this is getting dangerous for me because emotionally, I'm just, my body's just
You're empty.
Completely, I'm on empty, and I know what empty feels like. I mean, I never felt that before. So I called the chief of personnel and I said, is there any chance that you can just give me 10 days leave or something? No, sir. You got your orders. And I said, well, tell me this while I've got you on the phone. How much? I said, I'm at 11 years right now. if I go to 20, how much blue water time am I going to see between now and 20? He said, do you know what the fry is? I said, no, so I don't know what the fry is. He said, it's a fitness report index, FRI. I said, oh, okay, sir. He said, I'm looking at your fry. He said, if you go and you do this, you're going to have 7 years of blue water time.
Oh. 7 of the next 9.
7 of the next 9, yeah.
The next 9, right? And remember, I'd already done 7, pretty intense stuff and very significant stuff, right? And he said, if you do that, when you get to 20, you will be, you're already being fast-tracked. And you know what that means? I said, no, so I don't know. He said, well, if you don't step on it, this is what you can expect around year 18, 19, 20, 21. Which is something that I'd never imagined. And we go back to what our dreams are, guys. Yeah. How many aviators, Navy guys, Marine guys, that said, you know what, they wanted to take me out of the cockpit.
Right.
Yeah. Bye. Talking to one.
Yeah.
We're talking to 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give them the parade wave, right?
Yeah.
And now, of course, we all play the hindsight game. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's been so many times, my friends, that I thought, gosh, wouldn't it have been great to keep going, right? And to really define my persona, my soul as further making a contribution. And to have done that, to have been that, right? So now, if you will, think with me, please. There's a framed piece of paper up there that talks about the Aviation Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
And so how do you factor? How do you make sense of all of that? And by the way, you might have seen it on a resume bio. I was invited into the shuttle program.
Actually, I didn't know that. Did you repeat?
No, okay.
Nope.
No, I missed that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I flew the shuttle simulator and got to know everybody, and went to the all astronauts meetings. And that while I was still flying number 4, I'd come, on a day off and visit with those guys at their invitation. They came out to the Ellington show when I was flying the slot, the director of the flight operations directory and one of the first 4 shuttle pilots came to the air show. And I said, you need to come. And I'm the type of person that if I cannot envision, if I cannot feel it or sense it in my soul, I can't do it. I just can't. And that was in spite of, and by the way, here's another interesting little scenario. I was at an all astronauts meeting. John Young commanded all that, and all the new shuttle guys were there meeting. They had been meeting with subcontractors for the manufacture of the shuttle, and they're reporting back to John Young, right? And I'm sitting there next to the first female in the complement of astronauts, and just amazed, and in wonderment. I mean, are you kidding me? And the photos are everything from Gemini to Apollo to Skylab. I mean, all these guys, right? I'm sitting there, and they're about halfway through the table, and the door opens, and who do you think walks in the door? Mike Smith.
Right on.
Mike Smith, and he looks at me, and the last time I saw him was when I got my wings in Kingsville. He came up and said goodbye to me.
That's pretty awesome.
And he rushed around the table, and he got to put his arm around my neck, and then he whispered, "You coming? Are you coming?" And all I could say was, I don't know yet. And they asked me another time. They were so nice to me, guys. I mean, I swear. I get calls, right? I'm already flying a 727, right? And I get a call and say, hey, now that you've got that experience, flying a big airplane, 727 is about the size of a shuttle, right? Why don't we'll give you a job being in charge of the flight operations director, the airplanes, the variable stability Gulfstream and the T-38s. You can teach the guys how to fly the T-38, and fly the Gulfstream, doing the profiles for the arrivals on the shuttle.
Yeah.
And then you can get a degree, because the Navy, when the Navy caught wind of it, they said, hey, you're not qualified to go there. You don't have the academic credentials. You don't have an engineering degree. And my best grades were in math and physics. Who knew, right? But NASA said, hey, just come do this, hang out with us, and have fun doing this. You're in charge of all the airplanes. And then go over to U of H or Rice and, get a degree in math, and, that's enough for us, and if you don't want to do that, just stay in charge of this stuff, hang out with the astronauts. And I could not, and I still have not been able to have a visual, an emotional, spiritual visual that says, I'm in a NASA flight suit. No.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't your path. It wasn't meant to be for you.
Look, John, look at Bob Crippen. Bob Crippen was the one of the top four, and he was their computer Commodore 64 guru. And I didn't know the first thing about computers back then anyway. So Crippen was really, really smart. The other guy that I really loved was Joe Engel. Another one of the top four guys. And I'm bringing names up only to tell you how. Matter of fact, Joe Engel is in the Hall of Fame. Right?
Okay,
his picture's not far from mine, and I remember him going to the Harlingen Air Show when I was flying 3, and he was sitting behind my mom and dad behind in the VIP stand, and my mother's looking around, going, "Where's Al? Where's his airplane?" And Engel, Joe kind of taps her on the shoulder and says, "Oh, he's coming from the left now." Right? And mom thanks him, right? And then he introduces himself, and mom, weeks later, she goes, "There was a man up there in Harlingen in the stands that says he knew you or of you." And I said, "Really?" And I figured probably somebody from Brownsville, right? And it was Joe Engel. So we became really, really dear friends. So
we kind of glossed over the fact that, you treated it all matter-of-factly that
there it is.
We're a blue. No, there you go. Yeah, there's showing.
Great guy.
How is it you got onto the blues?
Yeah.
What that process like for you?
Another mystery in life,
right?
It's a mystery, sir. It's another life's mystery, sir.
I was I'd taken an F4 into Norfolk for the F4 to be used as a static display, and the events coordinator at the time for that team had been a air combat maneuvering tactical instructor down in Key West, right? So when I went down to Key West for tactics in the Phantom, we had kind of lived right next door to each other on the beach in Virginia Beach, so we got really close to one another down there, and so I got a chance to see what he was thinking about in terms of the Blue Angels, and he said, "Oh, why don't you think about that at some point in time in your career?" And I said, "Chuck, I'm not that good, man. That's for somebody else, right?" And so now we're out of Key West. He's gone to the Blues as the events coordinator, and I'm in Norfolk, right, chaining down the airplane, and the Blues are getting ready to take off, right, and my girlfriend picks me up, and we go back to the beach, and forget about it. I go back on Sunday to get the F4, and I'm underneath the airplane unchaining it, And here come the Blues, spit polished Blues, right? And they're walking right to left. And I'm underneath there in my dirty green flight suit. And one of them kicks me in the boot. And he says, "Hey, are you Al Cisneros?" I go, "Yeah, it's me." So I get underneath the airplane and says, "Hey, we're interested in you putting in some paperwork for this group here, for our team." And I said, "Oh, man." I said, "I don't know. Never thought about that." I says, "Well, put it in. We'd like to, because we know," he said, we know who you are. So I said, maybe, right? And then Chuck calls me, about 3 days later from Pensacola. He says, "Did they talk to you?" I said, "Yeah, they asked me about paperwork." He said, "Well, do it." I said, "No, man, I don't know. I just really have to think about that." And what it is it's just respect. It's just respect for those guys, and the amazement, that beautiful patriotic thing that you feel, that you can't imagine that you can be a part of, out of love and respect and admiration for those guys. And so I about a month or two later, I did, with encouragement from my commanding officer. He said, "Go ahead and do that." He said, "I've talked to the leader," Skip Bump said, and they want to see your paperwork. So I submitted, and I rushed the team for, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so. I'd go try to see them on the weekends and stand in the corner and just observe and all that. I got called. Here's an interesting story that's part of Blue Angel history. My operations officer in the squadron in combat, who was still in VF-31, was rushing the flight leader's job for the next year, and I was rushing to be a wingman. Right? Well, on the weekend of the Lakehurst Air Show on the Wednesday, we got a call from the Blues from Pensacola, right? And believe it or not, I was briefing the missile shoot.
Okay.
Remember the missile shoot?
No.
Yeah. That's where the guy who was in the room had told me that maybe I needed to think about something else.
Yes.
Remember?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the issue. So I'm in front of the room, and the phone rings, and the admin guy goes, "It's for you." I go, "I'm busy." Tell me. He said, No. Take a break. It's the Blue Angels, right? I go, "What?" "Yeah, it's Blues." So I go to the phone, and it's a leader. He said, "Hey, Al, we're going to go into Oceana tomorrow afternoon, right? And we want you and Richard to meet us at operations. Okay. You're going to do something that you've never done before as an applicant. You're going to sit in the arrival brief, and you're going to sit in on the departure and the practice brief." "Really?" "Yeah. And we want you both to be at Lakehurst tonight."
Okay.
Boom. This is on the phone.
Yeah.
Next day, we're standing at operations, man. We got more polish and hairspray and shit all over us, right? We're trying to look good, right? And so here they come. And only 5 airplanes. One of them stayed behind in Pensacola. Hydraulic leak, believe it or not, in F4. So we did that and finished up. The guys got a drink of water and a little snack, and it's time for takeoff, right? To be there at the arrival time at Lakehurst. I walked out with him as my partner did, as Dick did. I was the last person to shake hands with the slot pilot and the leader before they got in the Blue Jets. In 45 minutes, they were both deceased. They were both gone.
That day?
That day. They were doing, remember, there were only 5 airplanes. They couldn't do a diamond because one of the pilots was missing. So they were doing a little V roll, right? A little V, 3 airplanes, little V.
Okay.
And it was a roll. And one of the guys nudged the wing of the leader, and it slowed the roll rate down. And in the F4, unforgiving as it is, You cannot slow roll rate down low level, right? And they hit the ground. One of the crew chiefs that was in the back seat survived the leader's airplane, but the slot pilot didn't. And he had time to eject, but he did not command eject or eject. It didn't make any sense. But we were getting ready. We were getting ready to get in the car and drive. And the phone rang there at the house, and one of my buds called me and said, "Hey, phone's for you." Oh, no, we're getting ready. No. The phone's for you. It's a maintenance officer of the Blue Angels. And I went to the phone. He said, "Alan, you're not going." He said, he's just trying to talk. And he said, "We've had an accident, you know."
Wow.
I kind of forgot about. For one, we didn't know if the Blues were going to survive or the Thunderbirds were going to survive. We were both in Phantoms, and there was a big study. They grounded both of the teams, and we thought, well, this is the end of the demonstrations, right? And so the big study, you know, and what's interesting about the Navy side of the study said the best airplane for the air shows, you had 4. But you got to move the airplanes away from one another a little bit, right? Get away from wing overlap and all the anhedral and dihedral stuff off the wings and the tail and stuff. Yeah. All this stuff there. So and of course the remaining guys go that far apart, and so the hires, I guess CNO jumped in there and said, "No, not the Phantom. We're having a fuel crisis, you know, fuel shortages, and you guys are burning more gas than half the state of Florida." So they put us in A4Fs, you know, and they put the thing. You remember they put the T-Birds in T-38s, and we transitioned into that airplane. And I got to tell you again, you know, when I said about having a backseater in my F4 and how important that was for survival in combat, I firmly believe that because of the difficulty of flying the F4 in the air show, in the Blue Angel air show, that I was probably best being in the A4, not the F4 in the demo, right?
Sure. And that was the crash. That was the last time they flew Phantoms, right? After that, it was the A4 switch over. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I was deselected, officially deselected, because by the new rules, I didn't have enough flight time, you know, to be a Blue Angel pilot. And there you go. There. John Fogg was one of the survivors, right? But that was that little V right there that he was, obviously, as you know, he was in that maneuver. But with the new flight time requirements and the time that passed, I thought, you know what, maybe that's not meant for me again, right? And then I got another call from Pensacola, and they said, "Oh, why don't you just come and see the new airplanes, right? And just spend a weekend here with us. You know, we're not flying. We got da. Okay, so I can jump in my F4, you know, and go to Pensacola. You know, love Pensacola. So I went, you know, and parked the F4 at the end of the line, and I'm walking by these beautiful A4Fs, you know, just beautiful, beautiful little airplanes, right? F4 empty weighs 33,000 pounds. A4 empty weighs 11,000 pounds.
Yeah, weird, right?
A4 is like 33,000 fully loaded.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting right next to the leader's airplane. I mean, you can almost already smell the fresh paint right on this thing, and it's spotless. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty little A4, right? And I remember I'd ejected out of one and trained in another. Yep. And so I'm walking back into the hangar, and I stopped before I climbed the stairs, and I thought, God damn it, Al, think about this. And then it occurred, I got a thought bubble that said, how can you want something so much one day and not another?
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I walked in, and they were waiting. Hey, here's a beer. There's another beer. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I guess I'll put in my paperwork. And the leader says, no worries, we already put it in for you. We already put it in for you. Right. So, and then Admiral Tony Les called me into his office and he said, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news for you. So, really? I said, what? He said, well, the good news is you're going to be here for 3 years, but the bad news is you're going to be the narrator the first year. I said, oh my goodness, give me that microphone.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
What year was that, Al? 1973?
Yeah, was toward the end of 74, and then I joined them in 75. Yeah.
Okay.
So there I was trying to explain to someone why the stuff on my wall matters. It's not just decoration, it's identity, history, stories. Then I realized most people don't even know what's possible until they actually get to see it. That's where DCArtworks.net comes in. If you've got a wall in your office, your hangar, your shop, your bar that feels unfinished, go take a look at DCArtworks.net. This is a veteran-owned shop run by Derek Combs, and what he does is take steel and turn it into something that actually means something. Not mass-produced decor, not something you scroll past. These are pieces that make people stop and ask questions. Everything starts as precision, laser-cut steel, then gets hand-finished. The result is clean, durable, and built to last. But more importantly, it looks like it belongs somewhere important. And here's the part most people miss. What you see on the website is just a starting point. About 95% of what DC Artworks does is custom work. Squadron logos, call signs, aircraft silhouettes, unit gifts, business branding, personal pieces, things you literally cannot buy anywhere else because they don't exist anywhere else. And then someone has that idea and reaches out to Derek. That's the move. Don't just scroll the site and think, oh, that's cool. Scroll the site and think, what would mine look like? Because once you start that conversation with Derek, you very quickly realize how many directions this can go. Materials, finishes, size, layout. He'll walk you through what works and what doesn't, and what's going to look right on your wall. And that's when it clicks. You're not buying something off the shelf. You're creating something that's yours. I've got a set of Naval Aviator wings from him that are 2 feet across, and I can tell you this, nobody ignores them. They stop, they ask, they want to know where they came from. That's the difference. So, here's what to do. Go to dcartworks.net, take a few minutes, look around, then reach out to Derek and start that conversation. Because once you understand what's possible, your wall's not going to be staying empty for long. And when you're ready to buy, use code STIW for 20% off your order. Every day, every time, forever, even if something's already on sale. And thanks to DCArtworks.net for sponsoring this episode. So you were there for the bicentennial. You were a blue.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, well, think about it. We did the bicentennial in Philadelphia, right? Of all places. But we also did a great bicentennial 4-day show in Chicago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The estimated crowd in Chicago was 1,700,000 people.
Right there. Was Meigs Field it was there.
It was there.
The Navy Pier probably was Air Show Center.
Yeah, they had an artificial flight line, to the north of there. But
you couldn't even get 2 million people to show up for your show. Come on, slacker.
Chicago, man, dude. They were fighting each other on the other side of town. I don't know what they were doing, right. But it was magnificent. And then again, what a privilege, to see faces, that otherwise you would never have a chance to see.
Right.
And let's go back to the Hall of Fame dinner, right? And the faces that I'm looking at in that audience, all of which, are significant, beautiful, beautiful people. And I happen to be this little kid from Brownsville, Texas, standing up there. Are you kidding me?
How did that happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, another mystery.
Well, I have to tell you that I've been a Blue Angel fan since I was about 3 years old. When I saw the first show I saw was in the F4, but the A4, in my humble opinion, was the best ever show because the way the diamond looked in the A4, just spectacular. And I probably saw you at one point.
You might have. The delta wing of the A4 made it so special. And I got in smooth air, in spite of the short coupling, and bumpy air and stuff. In smooth air, I can remember being in the hole in the slot and looking around because the airplanes looked like they were welded together.
Yeah,
they looked like they were welded together. All the lines matched; they were even, and the roll rate was perfect. And I thought, I'd have to blink my eyes and go, my goodness. But the air was smooth, right? Yeah. And the leader had it. You can tell when there's a good show working. I'll tell you a funny story. I'm in the slot, fingertip, getting ready to do the diamond takeoff. And we're at Moffett. And at the end of the runway, you look across to the south, and there's a big blimp hangar, right? Another portion of Moffett Field.
Yeah.
And right there is a perimeter fence, right? Not but 30, 40 yards away from me. And I'm right there at the edge of the runway, right? And I look over there, and there's a blue pickup truck and a man standing in front of the truck and his little boy on the hood, on the fender of the truck. and he's waving at me, right? And because I'm looking over and I'm waving at him, I give him a hand salute when we roll. That turns out to be Blue Angel boss, Ryan Bernanke.
No way. That little kid?
He's 7 years old. And Ryan Bernanke and I, and whether he likes it or not, he'll have to admit it, we're really close friends. Really close. Yeah. Matter of fact, he calls me Tio, uncle, right? And so do his kids, right? And I call him mi jefe, my boss, right?
That's awesome.
Great disgrace. They spent the night here, when he was leaving the team. But think about how magical that is, right? In terms of how life goes on, right? And things that happen.
A simple little wave.
Yeah.
Put it right here, and he never lost sight.
Never let it go.
Right?
That's right.
Let it go.
Yeah, real close.
How easy would it have been to just look over and go, there's a kid over.
I'm busy.
I'm busy. I got shit to do. No, but you waved, you saluted.
Yeah. It happens for a reason. It really does. That is what is crafted by our Lord. That at some point in time, it has a meaning, and I think that's what's happened quite a bit. My circumstance when Boss Bernanke was the lead when they lost the number 6 pilot up there in Tennessee, and because I was on the team in '77 when we lost our number 6 pilot, and I was the guy that that was charge of stuff and directing us to get right back in the airplanes and go fly again. And we took a day off, and then there you boss. How are you, sir? How are you?
That's awesome.
Got a picture of him up on the screen.
Yeah. He thanks for showing me that again. They were having a hard time getting back in the airplanes, because of the differences in time, events, social media, so much attention placed on them. Great response from the community of Smyrna. Very difficult for them to go back in the air. And it got to the point where I got a call from one of the admiral's exes that said, "Al, call them and talk to them. We need to get them back in the air," right? And so I got another call, and he says, "Hey, I've been invited to go to the memorial park and be in attendance and speak alongside some of the Blue Angel guys. And he said, Al, what am I going to tell them? What are we going to tell the public? First of all, what am I going to tell the team to encourage them to set aside all of this and get back in the airplanes? Because you have to get back quickly. I said, tell them this.
Yeah.
Tell them that before you're Blue Angels, that you're warriors, that you're there to represent America. You're there to represent the United States Navy as warriors. And it's your obligation to this community and to the United States Navy and Marine Corps to strap those airplanes on again. That's exactly what one of the Blue Angels pilots said. The next day, they got in the airplanes.
Right.
Let me also say this, where I am sitting in the book on the historical list of Blue Angel pilots, 80 years worth.
That's cool.
I have had the privilege of knowing every single one of those leaders except for two. And I've seen every leadership style that you can imagine. I've seen the great ones and I've seen the ones not so great. I've seen some of the greatest pilots in the world and some that are not so great, but it's part of that human existence that occurs. The two that I've not met were the second ones. I think you might have heard this before, Peter. The second leader flew his last air show, turned in his wings, and went to Australia to marry the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. And that was the end of his career. The second one that I did not get a chance to meet was the one that was killed in Korea. The Blues were disbanded back in '51, and they created a squadron for them, and that leader was killed in Korea. Those are the only two I've not met. And what it means for my awareness or my sense of all of that dynamic, 80 years worth, is that when there's a reputation of a team being really, really good, they don't know who the wingmen are. They don't. They know who the leaders are, because it boils down to leadership, right? And a leadership style and all of that is like my commanding officer in Vietnam. We flew 2,200 sorties while we were over there, and we didn't lose an airplane. We got some banged up. We had to leave one behind, but that was because of leadership, and to the very end, I mean, he was my leader, right? My job was to protect him while we were over there, but I grew and learned from him. And so the success of that is similar to the success of the great Blue Angel teams, leadership. So as a junior officer, as a wingman, what do you learn? What do you learn going further in life? My business, as I lead my companies, it's about what I've learned, and how to care for others. The mantra, corporate culture, 2 words: love and relationships. That's it. If you make money, great. If you don't, you're on the right path anyway.
There you go. Well, I need to ask you this because I've asked every other Blue we've ever had on the show, and I think you may have already kind of answered it, but what do you think is the most difficult position on the team to fly?
The leader.
There you go. Yeah.
The leader, no question.
That'd be the... You'd always think, well, it's harder to hold, right wing or left wing or, but the leaders, it all revolves around it. Huh?
It just, at the end of the day, he's the one that goes to sleep at night going, oh, Jesus, man, I didn't do well today. Tomorrow's going to be a tough air show, right? It's going to be over the water. I've got to be careful of this guy. He doesn't go, he wakes up with the same concerns, the same fatigue, the same issues of complacency, or I don't feel good. I think I'm catching a cold. When in my third year, the leader got sick and got the flu, right? We had already started the training program, and he was out for 10 days. He was really sick. A little bit of strep, a little bit of this, that, and the other. And so I was asked to take the new guys, number 2, 3, and to to fly with them, to teach them the profiles, the reversals, not the overheads, but just the circular stuff.
Well, to keep their hands on the stick.
Absolutely. And the formation sets, right echelon, left echelon, right, and diamond, deltas. I did that for 10 days, and it was wonderful because it forced me to already take a skill that I thought I had and really work harder on making the calls and then doing the thing rather than making the call and doing it at the same time, Yeah. There's a word for that called the historian, right? Anytime my leader would do something concurrent, here you go. All right, boss, you're being a historian, you're saying it, and then you're doing it at the same time, and we're not ready for you, right? So, but I learned about that, but I learned how important it was to make that airplane just dance, just absolutely be magical for those guys. And they took to it, right? Absolutely took to it, which was a great benefit, an experience for me. And after I left and they stayed on, they'd call me and go, "Can you come back and do some of that stuff again so we can go have fun?" Right? And I go, "Yeah, I wish." But the leader, the solos have a very dangerous job. And the accident record bears that out. When the left wingman has a new leader, his job is really tough. I had that job. The lady who came to the Blues a couple years ago, that was her first. Yeah, it was her first job. She went 3 and 4, and I had a chance to visit with the team before she got started. I said, please know that she's got a brand new boss up there, who's learning the profiles, and she's we never fly on the left wing, right? We don't.
No.
We fly on
the
wing.
If you have to get into a break, but that's 20 seconds out of the day.
Exactly. You're straight level. And if it's got to be a right break, right? And almost always it's a left break because Navy pilots can only turn left, right?
Only one direction. Only one.
That's it. Only left. And so I talked about that, encouraging encourage them to be aware of if she has any kind of concerns or issues that they're, hey girl,
here she is,
Amanda Lee.
Yes,
Lieutenant.
Yeah,
Commander.
She's a tall girl too. She's really tall.
Yeah,
did a great job, and they work with her extremely well. Because she needed to succeed, for the sake of the program and the Navy and herself, herself, most
first
important.
Female pilot in the demo team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, but here's how I believe you can tell that she did well. They didn't leave her at number 3; they put her in the slot.
Put her in the slot. Yeah.
You don't put a slacker in the slot.
Exactly,
Not
and
that
that's
there's
the
any
normal.
slackers on the Blues,
Yeah.
but
Well, there have been circumstances.
Poor choice of words.
Where a 3 either stays on the wing, or he's released, or because there have been 2s that have gone to 3, right, and there have been 3s that have disappeared, right. But the normal progression is for 3 to go to 4. When she went to 4, she was ready. There's no question about it. And the boss was in his second year already, for that new team, and she did extremely well in the slot. The slot is quite a bit easier to fly than the left wing or the right wing. The left wing person, get that? never sees the ground. The turns are always into you, right? So when they turn into you, you're seeing the sky, right? And every now and then the sun will just burn your eyes when you go through that. And then down the backside, you're just so riveted on seeing the leader that it's boom, and then the reversal back into you over and over and over and over again. There were times in the A4 where I as number 3, I'd have to call the boss and go, "Boss, wings." we get to the bottom, and I didn't know whether we were really completely wings level or not, right? Because through so many rolls and machinations, and sometimes when it's hazy, you really don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
sky.
Reference. Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're just flying around in a fog bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then he'd wait and pause, go level, and I just kind of correct everything in the cockpit and go, okay, now I'm level. Here we go again. Turn into me again.
I got two questions because I'm beating repeat to it. We've asked all of our guests that have flown on the Blue Angels these same questions.
Yeah.
Best part about being a Blue Angel.
Well,
best part about being on the team.
First of all, the Blue Angels, being a Blue Angel is a gift that keeps on giving. No question about it. So you have to bring that into the discussion, right? That privilege. Now, in the moment, the best thing is, and I coined this phrase again when I was on the team, is the best thing is that you did the thing, you survived it, right? That's unequivocally the best thing. The hardest thing is being an applicant, right? Because think about it, you are a good pilot, but you're in a squadron with better pilots, better F-4 pilots, more combat, more distinguished, and you know that they're better than you are. Landing grades aboard the aircraft carrier day and night. Same vintage, same year group, if you will. But you think, based on some ego part of yourself, that you're good enough to be a Blue Angel. And you define that, you declare that when you make an application. That is difficult.
Sure.
It really is. Is. And then what happens is when I got selected and I'm in the med in bad weather with a wingman that I'm trying to make sure he doesn't fail. I'm calling him for Naval Aviation, and he's failing. And we're having problems with him getting aboard and not hitting the water. And everybody on the ship knows that I'm going to go to the Blue Angels.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so there's a little pressure there.
Everybody's watching on the on the videos, and it's Al. Taco's out there with this guy. And he almost hit the water. Now he's running out of gas, and the tanker's running out of gas, and Al's not going to have enough gas to land. And I mean, it's just, all of that is in that box of things that come with that distinction, if you will. But when you do that, and you better know that even today as we speak, there are guys that were in the air wing with me that I'm dear friends with, and others will say, if he can be a Blue Angel, I could be a Blue Angel. Right? Right. And there's some truth to that, because you get guys, single seaters, guys in difficult airplanes that go out at night, no diverts, run out of gas, single seaters, nobody to help them, talk them, and they're great. They're great, great, great guys, and I know so many of them, guys. Make no mistake about it. The opportunity to sit here and talk to you guys is a privilege. This is a gift that keeps on giving. I'm with you because of this. That is a gift.
That is a great answer.
Yeah, fantastic.
Great answer.
Yeah. It's humbling.
Who's that guy?
There we go.
Well, you know what? My brother found that on the internet about 3 years ago. He says, "Hey, I found this. It's supposed to be you." Well, that guy's pretty skinny. I don't know if that's me, but
there's your narrator season that oil painting there.
Quick story about narration. First narration at El Centro, California. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first
Did
narration.
You call the right city? Hello, Detroit.
Where am I? I look around, right? I've got the mic. It's my very first narration. The base CO is right in front of me, and to his left is a Mexican general, right? And they're 30 feet in front of me, right? And I go, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The United States Navy and its Flight Demonstration Squadron welcome you to this first Blue Angel of the 1975 season." And then I step forward in front of the CO and the general. I go, Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Bienvenidos a esta exhibición de Los Ángeles. And I looked down at the general and said, General, mi general, my general, bienvenido. CO of the base just goes, oh my God, what an intro, what a way to welcome this guy. And so that goes back into all of the things really that have been part of that experience. Being the first Hispanic Blue Angel pilot, and the many hundreds of times that I've been asked through the years, how did it feel to be that, right? And the beauty about being Hispanic and having the correct upbringing and the right awareness of both cultures, that going forward you can give the best of those cultures to those that you're with, and it's significant really for recruiting, for Navy, Marine Corps imaging, and the kids, the kids. It's about the kids.
Oh yeah, that's what hooked me, man. The Blue Angels hooked me when I was like 4.
Yeah. There's so many great stories that all of us on the various teams have, where they'll meet a little kid, right, and you sign an autograph or you talk to him a little bit more, and he never forgets it. And then he'll have a brochure, right, that you signed for him. And sometimes yours is the only signature on it. I had the same thing when I was at Southwest as a training captain, and I got called and said, "Hey, go drive to the airport at Hobby and get on an airplane, and there's going to be a kid coming from the training center, and you're going to train him for a month." Okay, so and it's a Friday. Airplane is already loaded. Everybody's drunk in the back because the bar's been open back there for 3 or 4 hours waiting on, not 3 or 4 hours, for about an hour waiting on this new pilot. And finally he's coming down the jetway, boom, 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 boom. And it's summertime, but he's in his winter flight suit, uniform, got his hat on, right? Book bag, suitcase. And he comes in, he puts his stuff down, and he's trying to locate things, trying to figure out where things go, right? I've already done the walk around, got the flight plan, talked to the flight attendants, tell them to close the bar and get ready to go. And the guy on the headset going, Captain, can we start the motors? We have an airplane waiting for the gate. I said, yeah, give me about 3 minutes, okay? Okay, all right, Captain, boom. So I'm watching this guy, and he finally locates where to put a suitcase and the book bag, and he sits down, and he's still got his uniform on, his jacket, right? I go, hey, I got it taken care of. Don't worry. Go ahead and hang up your coat and get your book out, and we're going to do a checklist, right? And the door slams. The flight attendant says, Al, can we leave? Come on, please. It's time to go. Okay. All right. We're going to go real quick. So I call for the checklist, right? And so I go, give me a before start checklist. So I hand him the checklist, and then he looks at me, right? And he looks at me, and I go ahead. It's a challenge and response thing, right?
Yeah.
And he looks at it, and he says, Captain, can I show you something? I go, yeah. Hurry. Tell me what it is, okay? Yeah. What is it? And so he takes his book off of the book bag, he puts it on the console, gets in there, and he pulls out a Blue Angel pamphlet.
Get the hell out.
He opens it.
That is awesome.
He says, you're the only one who signed it for me.
Hairs on my arms are standing up right now.
I know, right? Oh.
So he's been carrying it around with him forever.
Turns out that he is one of the best pilots flying today.
Wow.
He followed, he knew where I was, what I'd done. He had joined the Navy. They told him that he had some astigmatism, so they wouldn't put him in the front seat, so they put him in the back of an F-14. He kept flying in the flying clubs, forced the Navy to give him an upgrade into the front seat.
Yep.
Finished, went to fly for little TWA in St. Louis in the feeders, knowing that what he wanted to do was to go to Southwest. And he did exactly that. And now he has helicopter rating, C rating, 6,000 jumps out of airplanes, master instructor in jumping out of airplanes, and one of the best pilots at Southwest Airlines.
That is
that kid.
Fantastic story.
That kid. He was at my induction at my table.
Oh,
wow.
Fantastic. Okay.
Because that you pay back.
Yeah.
You pay back. And
wow. I did not see that coming, Taco.
No, neither did I.
Not see that coming. I
Isn't
got
that
tears in
great?
my eyes.
isn't that wonderful? Isn't
Yes.
that wonderful? And what it is I flew, I got to tell you this, man, shit. My last month, he put himself in my right seat for my last month.
Wow.
And you talk about a piece of cake, the most natural aviator that you could ever meet. The very first time that I flew with him, even then, situational awareness was perfect. He knew it. He got it. Because he had been in a tougher environment over at little TWA, right, in the feeders.
Sure,
And those are the best pilots that come to the mains. Those guys, right?
Well,
They're the best.
that is a. I mean, you talk about tying the bow on a story.
Right.
I wasn't sure where you're going with. Hey, maybe there's only one signature on a. The kid only gets one autograph on a pamphlet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. His dad. He said, my dad said, because he's from down in the valley, where I'm from. His dad walked him in front of my airplane, and he was I think 11 at the time, something like that. And he said, you see that man? He's from your hometown. His dad was working at a chemical plant, Celanese plant down there by the port. And he said, you see that man? I know his dad. I used to work for his dad when I was a kid. He is a little Mexican guy. He's a little Mexican kid. If he can do that Blue Angel thing, you can do anything too. That's what his dad told him.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
You go, okay, thank you very much, sir. Good, kind of good advice, right? But,
Wait a minute. I've been insulted.
No, that is
If he can
Al.
do it,
That
you
is
can do it.
just a fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. That is. I mean, you are just full of these good stories. We've been talking for 2 hours and 7 minutes. And
I'm sorry.
It
Feels
seems
like
like
maybe
we've been
20
talking
minutes.
for about 20
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just overran the clock. I'm sorry.
Oh, there's no time.
This is gold. This
It's
is why
truly
we do the show.
It's truly an honor to get to, first of all, to hear your stories in person. And now they're going to be in perpetuity because it's digitally recorded.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
When you cut it and splice it, and some of it lines up on the floor like the old days, right? How long will it be? Will it be like an hour?
Oh,
So I'm thinking, no. So it's all going. The only thing that I'll take out is, for instance, when we took a couple minutes for you to get the
cord.
charger for your
The charger
computer,
cord.
because no one wants to hear that.
Yeah.
But everything else goes in.
Yeah, man.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is,
Well,
the venue,
Yeah,
our
they cut it
venue is,
into 2 shows, 2 different weeks.
it's
In
like,
fact, I'll likely do that.
we like to consider this, we're sitting at the Oak Club, and we're swapping flying stories. Only today, we're just listening to yours.
Oh man. Well, when do I get a chance to listen to yours? Do I need to go see you guys or what?
Yeah. Nobody wants
No
to
one
hear
wants to hear.
Nobody
us.
wants to hear our
Yeah.
stories, Al.
Actually, I think it was last week. It was just figging me.
Yeah, we were
we were
talking about
bullshitting about different stuff that we've seen and done, and I think we talked a little bit about the LaGuardia crash and how easy all those holes were to line up. As terrifying as it was and is,
Yeah.
I opened the show with a story of I was at 50 feet on final that night and froze. And then the instructor goes, "You notice anything wrong here?" And I'm like, "Froze
he was in the simulator.
that is."
Froze the simulator.
And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't see anything wrong." And so he turned it from daylight to nighttime to daylight in the simulator, and bigger and shit. There was a jet sitting in position on the runway. I was about to hit it, but couldn't see it. And they had, I was either in the goo or they somehow distracted me by putting that taxi jet on the runway off the taxiway,
Yeah.
and could not see it.
I was at a hold short. I was holding short, not hold. Excuse me. I was in position and hold
Yeah.
in a 7-3.
Yep.
I'm in the left seat. It's at night, right?
Yep.
And tower says Southwest, hold your position, hold your position. And in that moment, a business jet flew right over us and landed 1,000 feet ahead of us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't even check in. There's no recording of him a tower freak. He might have been he might have been on ground control.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's yeah. But it's amazing how little things like that can happen. And I think if I've told this ever so briefly, flying with this guy, and he's since retired from my airline as well, but he said he'd been flying all week with this guy, like 3-4 nights in a row, and he had a new first officer this next night, and they were taxiing up the taxiway, and there was an Airbus about 200, 300 yards in front of them, and first officer, you know, they're all waiting in line, all lined up, waiting in line. First officer steps on the brakes, brings the airplane to a stop. It stopped up there. So he sets the parking brake and waits. Bus starts moving. He's like, takes parking brake off, starts taxiing again. About 200-300 yards short of that Airbus, the first officer stands on the brakes, brings the airplane to a stop. He sets the parking brake, looks over at him, goes, "Am I making you nervous?" He goes, "Well, yes, sir, a little bit." He goes, "There's plenty of room between us and the Airbus." He says, "I'm not worried about the Airbus. I'm worried about the Learjet down there you keep trying to run into."
Oh, my word. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Can't see the forest for the trees, you know. You're looking.
He said, "My blood run cold." He says, "I didn't have a problem staying awake the rest of the night. The adrenaline shot that gave me just..."
Yeah. I've got another story that I need to tell you off record, if I can.
Right on.
Off record?
Off record?
Off record. Yeah.
Off record.
All right. We'll do it after we go silent then. So
okay.
Sorry, folks. Some of these we just don't share.
Some of it is what they call privileged information.
Yeah. We just can't.
It's a beautiful story, you know, and there's a lot of great reward of that circumstance and the things that move forward beyond that. Very significant.
Okay. I have another Blue Angel service question for you. Do you recall, or can you tell of, you know, I know it's been a minute, but some things seem like yesterday. So is there a time you can tell us of when you were on the Blue Angels where there was a very humorous thing that you remember vividly?
Humorous.
Like a lawman, he told us a story of when he was brand new and they were on the way to El Centro for winter training. So it's the first time he was putting on the blue fitted suit to go fly. They stapled it all together with like a 5,000 staple. So I did, something like, do you recall being a part of anything like that?
Well, not really. There are certain things that would happen right on the road, but nothing that really sticks in my mind.
That's probably a good thing then.
Yeah, really, the things that really stick are the ones that are real difficult. Difficult ones to deal with, right? And almost always it's in-flight related stuff. But we can talk about that, sometime in the future as well, right?
Sure. Love to have you back and do more of this. Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. You guys are crazy. No way. 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah, there you go. Well, let me ask this. Would you spend a lot of time in the weight room even back in the mid-'70s? Was that part of your...
Not as much as the current team. I think the current team is obligated to at least 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And you can tell the way those guys are shaped. We were in great shape, no question, especially while we were in El Centro. We'd brief at 5 in the morning and release breaks at 7, and we'd be done by about 2 in the afternoon, 2 flights a day. And then that would give us a chance to go for a run and go to the gym, run over the gym, and that we were in really good shape. But it wasn't mandated because of the G loads. It was just, you need the stamina. You need to be able to endure this for the next.
Yeah.
The days are long. Yeah, the
2
days,
days wasn't enough of a workout, I guess.
and we do it for 13 days, and if we were on time, on schedule, we'd take a day off. If not, we keep going. But I think that no doubt you guys have been told that toward the end of the season, you are just really tired.
Yeah.
Really, and that's just the nature of things, and so you have to really be careful and be aware. One of the things that I always tell the new guys, especially the new boss, I said, boss, look at the accident records, right? Look at the history of the team. Throughout the years, when do the accidents happen? Close to finishing winter training, because now if you're not ready, you'd really try to work harder at it, faster, lower, whatever.
Yeah.
And then sometime around September.
Yeah, towards the end of the air show season.
Right there, where summer's been brutal, you've traveled, you're in and out, and then you start getting a little bit complacent. Oh, I've done this diamond roll 1,000 times.
Getting comfortable.
Getting too comfortable, right?
Yeah.
I've seen when I was 7, I've seen, maybe when I was an applicant, but I've seen a diamond roll where the left wingman, where the leader's like this, and the left wingman is like this.
Oh.
The boss says, "Okay, we're going to roll now." Say again.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
And when was that? That was in September, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And I was there in the debrief, and it was like come to Jesus stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I will share stuff with you later about some of that as well. And when you are finished with it and you put it all in a recap, you thank God. You just thank God. You thank God for the opportunity. You thank God for being able to listen to your mother's prayers, be it either in combat or the Blue Angel experience. All of it factors in. All of it. We are here not by accident. You guys have done something amazing in your own careers. All predestined.
Right.
You've survived. You survived the times that you got a little slow in the turn as a kid, and you didn't know anything about energy or approach turn stalls or any of those things, and you survived.
Right? Yeah. Yep.
In spite of our best efforts.
Out of your best. That's another great line. That's another great line. Top Gun Maverick. Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Oh, man.
Wow.
All right. Well,
what do you say we land this plane?
We ought to do it. Yeah.
Let's land the jet.
Land this plane and get you back, Al, because
I forgot what the
blast.
tolerances are on the fuel gauge. I'm beginning to question my, how much fuel I got left. God,
Right?
That's how we opened that. That was the opener.
Yeah.
I soloed at 176. Yeah. Yeah, that one. That's my. I used to think that was the biggest airplane in the world.
Right. This is the fastest, most badass airplane ever until you get in the next one, right?
Nieces and nephews I adore. Oh,
Nice. Well, fantastic.
Well, it's been a true honor and a privilege to meet you, speak to you. I look forward to meeting you in person someday, and thank you for sharing with us.
No, thanks.
Indeed. Well, we need to thank you for your service, especially, and all the inspiration that you provided to so many that then went on to serve as well. And thanks to all those on active duty now, putting themselves in harm's way, and for their families who sacrifice so much so that they can do that distraction-free.
Huge.
We, as a nation, are indebted. We don't know them all, but we owe them all. As Stick says, we have a debt to you that we cannot pay. We can only say thank you.
We got to throw out a thanks to Dave Hamilton, backbeatmedia.com. He gives us the bandwidth, the know-how, what else, repeat? And the advertising.
And advertising. Helps find advertising. Yeah. So, Backbeat Media has been a backbone for us from the very beginning, and we're grateful to Dave Hamilton at backbeatmedia.com for that. So, Patreon. Thank you to all the wonderful folks who have lost all sense of financial responsibility, cracked their wallets open, and put money in our pocket. We don't understand why you do it, but we're humbled by the fact that you do when you get to help keep great shows. And you know what? I'm beginning to understand, because when a great show like this comes along, I understand people want more and they want to help keep that coming. And you're sacrificing your hard-earned money to help us do that. This is not a cheap endeavor, and we appreciate all the money that you give us. So as well, we have Cisneros.us/donate will get you to our page where you can donate via Venmo, donor box, or Patreon. And we try to notify you ahead of time when we're going to have recordings, that sort of thing. The cool thing about Venmo is they take a smaller cut when you send us some money. So if you're just going to give one time, we'd appreciate the Venmo. So.
Speaking of sending money, we do question your judgment, but we are so very humbled that you do donate. Hey, we have a merch store. Matter of fact, I'm wearing one of our hats. Listen, we have a bikini. We have a bikini, and it's almost bikini season again. But hey, so there I was.us/merch. If you want to take a look, it's got our logo on it that was designed by Stix, who's in the background doing our production work. Thank you, Stix.
Thank you. Yeah. And while we're thanking Stix, thank Bago. Bago couldn't be here today, but Stix and Bago both do a bunch of work in the background for us to make this show come off flawlessly. And if you think it's damn close to flawlessly, get over to starwars.us/rate and throw 5-star rating on the show. And if you feel like you must give a 3-star rating, find another show, give it to them, come back and tell us what we can do better, and give us 5 stars, and we'll take care of it. We're trainable.
Somebody else. Yeah, we're totally trainable.
Yeah. Nothing less than 5 stars for us, please. We beg of you. And subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us in podcast. Subscribe anywhere you can. And please share the show. Go hold people down at gunpoint and make them listen to our show.
Whoa. Maybe not
leave
gunpoint.
the gunpoint out.
But hey, share the show. That doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. No, share it, baby. Share
no taking hostages allowed.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Hey, Brad Silcott, he's here today. Thanks for being here today, Brad. But at BDS Aviation Photography, the man is a true artist. He lets us use his photos on our website and on our show, and want to shout out to him. Thanks, Brad.
Indeed we do. So, and then a thank you to Derek over at tcartworks.net for sponsoring this show and for all the amazing stuff that he does for us. It's incredible stuff. Anything else, Fig? I think that's probably it, huh?
Oh, hold on. I hear in the background there, that's the F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. The Dos Gringos, the 2 of them. They got 4 albums. There's not a bad song on any album. And if you're having a bad day, you need to listen to the little Dos Gringos song. They're fine patriots. They've been on our show twice, and they make great music.
There you go. All right, everybody. Till next week, the best advice we can give you is stay safe and check this.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down in the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Well, hold on. It's what?
He said it's over.
Now I have to face stupid reality again.
I never know what's coming.
I know.
I never know what's coming.
Weird.
Out. Woo!
Fantastic.